My name's Evan Holt, and I've been working private security for nearly 7 years. Most of that time has been spent bouncing between routine contracts, malls, warehouses, construction sites. But about a year ago, our company picked up a new one. A government contractor had reopened an old research facility on the outskirts of Coleridge County, about 45 minutes outside of the nearest town. It used to be a testing lab for something medical. No one really knew what, but it was shut down decades ago. The building was massive, 6 stories tall, built from pale concrete, surrounded by a 12-foot chain-link fence topped with coils of barbed wire. The only road that led to it was an unmarked dirt stretch that twisted 3 miles through thick pine forest. No other buildings, no houses, nothing but woods and silence. It was the kind of place where sound didn't travel. Perfect for something to go unnoticed. Normally, I took morning shifts, but after a few guards quit unexpectedly, my supervisor asked me to help cover the overnight weekend rotation. Just for a few weeks, he said. Extra pay, easy money. I should have said no. The first 2 weekends were quiet. I'd sit in the monitoring room on the top floor, a windowless space lined with screens showing every hallway, entrance, and the long, empty parking lot. The building's systems were modernized, but it still felt old, hollow. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty, it feels watchful. On the 3rd weekend, a storm rolled in just before midnight. Wind howled through the trees, rain hammered the windows, and thunder shook the walls. Around 2:15 a.m., I was sitting in the control chair, lights dimmed, scrolling through camera feeds while a cup of coffee went cold beside me. Everything looked normal, until I noticed static on camera 12, which faced the back perimeter fence. At first, I thought it was just the weather, but then lightning flashed, illuminating the lot for half a second, and I swear I saw something move between the trees. A tall shape, there 1 second, gone the next. I leaned forward, staring at the screen, waiting for another flash of lightning. The seconds crawled. When the sky lit again, the shape was gone. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I was just tired. The storm made everything flicker and hum. I went to stretch my legs, walked to the vending machine down the hall, and cracked open an energy drink. When I came back, camera 12 was offline, just black static. I sighed, assuming the wind had knocked it loose. I made a note for maintenance and kept scrolling through the other cameras. Everything looked empty. Hallways, stairwells, lobby, parking lot. Then the system pinged. A small window popped up on the main screen. Access granted. Rear maintenance door. I froze. That door wasn't supposed to be opened by anyone except day staff, and none of them had authorization that night. I switched feeds. The camera above the rear door flickered. I could barely make out the faint glow of the keypad light, but no one was there. A chill crawled up my neck. Whoever it was had entered the correct code, which meant they either worked here once, or they were watching someone who did. I picked up the desk phone. Dead. Storm must have knocked the line. I grabbed my cell. No service. The storm outside was roaring now, rattling the vents and flickering the lights. I decided to check the hall to see if I could get a signal closer to the stairwell. The air felt thick, like the whole building was holding its breath. Halfway down the corridor, the power went out. The hum of electricity stopped. The monitors went black. I stood there in the dark, the only sound the pounding rain and my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I drew my flashlight and handgun, standard issue, but they suddenly felt like toys. The backup generator usually kicked on within seconds. This time it didn't. I kept my light low and moved toward the stairs, planning to head for the main exit and wait out front in my truck until help arrived. The stairwell was pitch black. Even the emergency lights were dead. As I started down, I heard something. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate, coming from below. I froze. The echo of each step climbed the concrete stairwell, steady and slow. Too slow to be panicked, too heavy to be cautious. Whoever it was, they weren't trying to hide. I started backing up quietly, one hand on the railing. Then, clang. My radio hit the metal handrail and made a sharp noise. The footsteps stopped. For 3 long seconds, nothing. Then, sprinting. They were running up the stairs. I turned and bolted back toward the 6th floor, adrenaline surging. My boots hit the steps hard, echoing in the darkness as I reached the top. Just outside the door, a maintenance ladder led up to a small roof hatch, barely big enough to squeeze through. I had seconds. I shoved open the stairwell door as hard as I could, let it slam loudly, and then quietly climbed halfway up the ladder and waited in the dark. The sound of running grew closer, then stopped at the landing. A faint light flickered below, probably from a phone flashlight. I could hear the person breathing. Then, the door to the hallway creaked open. They fell for the trick. The moment I heard it slam shut behind them, I dropped down from the ladder and ran. I sprinted down the stairs, 2 at a time, until I reached the 2nd floor. My chest was burning. I didn't dare look back. I just kept running. By the time I reached the lobby, I could see faint emergency lights glowing outside from my truck's headlights. I reached the glass doors, unlocked them, and stepped out into the storm. I was soaked in seconds. I started my truck, with trembling hands, reversed, and just as I was about to pull away, movement caught my eye in the rearview mirror. Someone in dark clothing sprinted out of the building. They stopped in the middle of the parking lot, watching me. Their hood was up, their face hidden behind some kind of fabric, maybe a mask. Then they raised their arm, not waving, not pointing, just raising it, like they wanted me to see they were holding something metallic. I didn't wait to find out what. I hit the gas and tore down that dirt road until I finally got a signal on my phone. I called the sheriff's department and waited at a gas station off the highway for them to meet me. When we returned with 2 deputies, the building was locked again. The backup generator had kicked on. They swept every floor, every room, every hallway. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints in the mud. Nothing but the dangling camera I'd seen earlier, wires swinging in the wind. But near the basement stairwell, they found something small on the floor. A key card, smeared with mud and old residue. The badge photo was so faded, it was hard to make out, but what caught my eye was the name. Dr. L. Penner, Senior Research Division. The sheriff told me that name hadn't been in their system since the 1980s, back when the facility was still operational. The weirdest part, the card's magnetic strip still worked when tested later. I transferred to another contract after that, and I've never taken another overnight shift since. But sometimes, when it storms late at night, I think about the sound of those footsteps. Calm, deliberate, confident, as if whoever was down there wasn't breaking in, but was coming home. I used to work as the overnight security guard for a mid-rise office building on the outskirts of Toledo, Ohio, the kind of place with polished floors, glass walls, motion sensors, and a lobby fountain that echoed louder at night than it ever did during the day. The job was simple and lonely. Between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., I was the only person in the building. The cleaning staff left by 10, and the night shift ET workers clocked out before I even arrived. So most nights were quiet, almost peaceful. Just me, the low hum of the ventilation system, and the monitors showing the empty corridors and the underground parking level. But there was one night that never left me, and I still think about it when I'm alone in parking garages. It was a little past midnight. I was scrolling through the security feeds like usual. Ground floor entrance, elevator lobbies, conference hall, and finally, the camera overlooking the underground garage. That's when I saw him. A figure, tall, wearing a long dark coat, walking slowly between the parked cars. Now, this garage required a key card to enter, and I knew for a fact that nobody should have had access at that hour. Not employees, not shifting staff, no one. At first I assumed maybe it was a late IT guy, but the way the person moved, slow, deliberate, stopping every few steps like he was listening or checking. Something about him was wrong. I radioed my supervisor, who told me to stay at your desk and monitor, but my instincts were already in overdrive, so I grabbed my flashlight and headed down. The elevator ride felt like it took forever. When I stepped out into the garage, the air felt heavy, not cold, just dense. I shined the flashlight across the floor and aisles of cars. Nothing. Not a sound. Not even an echo. I even called out, "Security, if someone's here, you need to identify yourself." Silence. After sweeping the place twice, I headed back to the lobby. I figured maybe I imagined it, or the camera caught a shadow. But when I sat back at the desk and looked at the monitor, he was there again, standing exactly where I first saw him. Same posture, same coat, like he had never moved, and I had been down there less than 2 minutes ago. My body went cold. For the next 15 minutes, I watched him slowly walk toward the stairwell, the one that led up to every office floor. Then he disappeared from camera view, but he never came through any stairwell door, never triggered a motion sensor, never appeared on another feed. Then the elevator bell dinged. I looked up. The doors opened, no one inside, but on the shiny floor of the lobby were wet footprints, bare feet, leading out of the elevator, into the hallway behind me. I froze. I didn't breathe, because now I knew he was inside. I called the after-hours emergency patrol service. They told me to lock myself in the security room, but something made me walk instead. I wish I could explain why. Instinct, curiosity, arrogance. I took the elevator to the 4th floor. The hallway lights flickered faintly. They always did at night, but it felt different now. Wrong. Halfway down the hallway, one office door was slightly open. It was never unlocked. Ever. I nudged it open with the flashlight. The room was empty except for a turned-off monitor, a chair, and water on the floor, like someone had stood there dripping. I backed out slowly. That's when I heard it. Footsteps behind me, wet, uneven, fast, not running, approaching. I spun around and saw him at the far end of the hallway, tall, coat buried in shadows, head tilted slightly toward me like he was studying me. Then he moved, not running, but walking with purpose, like he already knew I had nowhere to go. I ran. I don't remember reaching the stairwell. I don't remember nearly falling down it. I just remember slamming the door and hearing nothing, not footsteps, not breathing, just silence. Silence so thick, it felt like it pressed against my throat. The patrol arrived 12 minutes later, but it felt like hours. We searched everything. No footprints, no coat, no sign of forced entry. And worst of all, the camera footage from the entire hour was corrupted, like it never happened. I quit 2 weeks later. Now, years later, I still avoid parking garages and elevators at night and stairwells where the air feels too still. Because the thing that terrifies me most is knowing it wasn't a ghost. It was a person, someone who watched me, followed me, moved when I moved, and disappeared just before anyone else arrived. Someone who wanted to see me alone, and maybe still does. I want to make something clear before I start. This happened recently, not months ago, not years ago, 3 nights ago. My very first night as a trainee security patrol officer. I work for a private security company in northern Illinois, the kind that sends guards in marked cars to different business locations during the night to check alarms, locked doors, that kind of thing. They call it mobile response. The job sounded simple enough. My trainer that night was a guy named Evan. Mid-20s, calm voice, didn't talk much. He walked me through the basics during the shift, how to document entries, perform perimeter checks, and how to communicate on radio properly. I remember thinking he seemed too relaxed to be doing night security. Around 1:30 a.m., dispatch assigned us a routine perimeter check at a medical office building located just outside town. No alarm had gone off, just a scheduled walkthrough. But the moment we pulled into the lot, something was off. The underground parking gate, which should be secured at all hours, was completely open, not raised, jammed open like something forced it. Then we noticed the front entrance. The glass panel next to the door was cracked from corner to corner. Not shattered, but pushed inward, like something or someone leaned their weight against it. Hard. Evan stared at it for a few seconds before saying quietly, "That's not supposed to happen without an alarm. Something's wrong." We stepped inside, slowly. The building was silent. No lights except for a few low hallway fixtures. The kind of silence that feels aware of you. Then we saw the elevator panel. The elevator was moving by itself, ground floor. Second, third, fourth. Stopping at the top floor. No one else was supposed to be in the building. No late staff, no cleaners, nobody. Evan didn't hesitate. He pulled his baton from his belt and motioned for me to stay close. My heart was pounding so hard, I could hear it in my ears. I remember thinking, this is my first night. We got into the elevator, and the ride up was one of the longest minutes of my life. There was this feeling, like someone was standing just outside the elevator doors, waiting for us to step out. I kept imagining the doors opening and someone rushing us, but when the doors finally opened, there was nothing, just dark, empty hallways. We switched on the lights and checked each exam room on the 4th floor together. It felt wrong being up there, like the floor wasn't empty, even though it looked empty. Then we heard it. Footsteps, not running, not cautious, just walking, descending the stairwell at the far end of the hallway. Evan froze. I froze. He whispered, "They're trying to move around us." We walked to the stairwell door, ready to open it. And the footsteps stopped, just like that, completely silent, no breathing, no shifting weight, nothing. Evan keyed his radio, and the exact words he used are burned into my brain. "Dispatch, Unit 14, we have an intruder in the building. We need another unit here now. Dispatch told us to stay where we were and not pursue. Backup was on the way, but waiting was somehow worse. Because if the intruder was downstairs, they knew we were upstairs, and they knew we couldn't get out without going back down. I don't know how long we waited. All I know is that every tiny sound made me jump. Eventually, another security vehicle arrived. Our senior supervisor entered the building and met us on the 4th floor. Together, the three of us cleared each floor, room by room. We found nothing. Nobody in the stairwell. Nobody in the rooms. No signs of forced entry beyond the door glass. We were finishing the sweep on the 3rd floor when we heard the front entrance door slam, open downstairs, hard, and then footsteps sprinting across the lobby. By the time we reached the ground floor, the lobby doors were swinging and the night outside was quiet again. Whoever, or whatever, was in there. They had been close the entire time. Close enough to hear us, close enough to watch us move, but we never saw a face, never got a description, nothing. This upcoming weekend, I'm assigned to do the same building, alone this time, and I haven't slept more than a couple hours since that night, because I keep thinking the elevator didn't move on its own. The footsteps weren't my imagination. Someone was there, someone who didn't want to be seen, and the worst part, they knew the building better than we did.